Sharon Brewster, 66, was doing the second one deep in the Cascade Mountains of Washington, where Amazon Prime is a myth and your nearest neighbor is a family of elk. Most people would call that boring. The universe called that the perfect setup. Made up, but damn if it won't make you feel something. Anyone ever experienced something strange in the woods? Tell me in the comments. Let me paint the picture for you. Sharon Brewster didn't end up in the Cascades by accident. She ended up there the way most people end up anywhere that matters, by running from something and stumbling into exactly what they needed. 66 years on this earth, and the first 40 of them she spent being someone else's wife, someone else's mother, someone else's problem to solve. Then Gerald died. Heart attack at 58, dropped dead in the driveway with a bag of groceries in each hand and a receipt from Home Depot still warm in his pocket. The tomatoes rolled down the driveway. She remembered that part more than anything. 3 tomatoes, rolling slow, like they had all the time in the world. After that, the kids came around for a month, maybe 2, brought casseroles, said things like you. Doing okay, Mom, and we're here if you need anything. But they had their own lives, jobs in Seattle, kids with soccer schedules, mortgages that didn't pay themselves. So Sharon did what any reasonable widow does. She sold the house in Tacoma, bought 40 acres of pure isolation with a cabin that looked like it was held together by prayers and spite, and told her children she'd call them for Christmas. That was 4 years ago. She'd called exactly twice. The cabin sat at 6,200 feet, tucked into a valley where the Douglas firs grew so thick that noon looked like dusk. No power lines, no cell service, just a wood stove, a propane fridge that wheezed like an old man, and a creek that ran year-round about 50 yards down the slope. She had a satellite phone for emergencies, but she kept it in a drawer and mostly forgot it existed. The only visitors she got were the ravens, big, loud bastards who liked to sit on her porch rail and judge her life choices. Sharon's daily routine was simple, borderline Amish. Up at dawn, coffee made in a percolator on the stove, oatmeal with dried cranberries if she was feeling fancy, plain if she wasn't. Then it was chores, splitting wood, checking the traps she set for mice in the shed, hauling water when the pump froze over. She read a lot, had a whole shelf of paperbacks she'd bought at a yard sale in Packwood, westerns, thrillers, some romance novels she'd never admit to enjoying but absolutely did. Lunch was usually leftovers. Dinner was whatever she felt like making, which was often soup, because soup didn't judge you. Evenings, she sat on the porch with a blanket and a thermos of tea and just existed. No TV, no internet, just the sounds of the forest doing its thing whined through the trees, the distant hoot of an owl, the occasional crack of a branch under something's weight. People asked her once, back when people still asked, if she got lonely. She always said the same thing. You can't be lonely when you finally like your own company. But here's the thing about isolation. It sharpens you, makes you notice things. The forest had rhythms, patterns. Sharon knew when the deer came through, usually just after dawn, moving quiet as ghosts through the underbrush. She knew when the bears were active late summer, fattening up for winter, tearing apart rotted logs for grubs. She knew the sound of a healthy tree versus one about to drop in a windstorm. She knew her land, every rock and root and rise. So when things started feeling off, she noticed. It was early November when the strangeness began. Not dramatic, not like the movies where shit goes sideways all at once, just small things. A stack of firewood she'd left by the shed got knocked over. She figured it was wind, restacked it, moved on. Then a bag of sunflower seeds she'd hung for the birds disappeared. Not just empty, but gone, torn clean off the branch. No sign of the bag anywhere. She blamed a raccoon, bought a heavier duty feeder, kept going. But then there were the footprints. Sharon found the first one on a Tuesday morning, right at the edge of the clearing where her property met the tree line. She'd gone out to check the rain gauge, just a habit, something to do, and there it was, pressed into the mud near the creek. At first, she thought it was a bear print. Had to be. Except it wasn't. Bears have 5 toes. Yeah, but they're spread different, claws way out front. This print had 5 toes, but they were arranged more like a human's. And the thing was massive, damn near 18 inches long, maybe 8 wide, pressed so deep into the mud that whatever made it had to weigh serious weight. She crouched down, one knee in the dirt, and just stared at it. Her brain cycled through options. Bear, deformed bear, really big person, in weird shoes, elaborate prank by someone with way too much time and access to her property. None of it made sense. Finally, she just stood up, brushed the mud off her jeans, and walked back to the cabin. She didn't tell anyone. Who the hell would she tell? The next day, there were 3 more prints. Same size, same shape, leading from the creek up toward the ridge. She followed them for about 50 yards before they disappeared into a rockier section where nothing left marks. That night, she sat on the porch longer than usual, listening. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. No owls, no rustling. Just wind and her own breathing. Probably just a big-ass bear, she muttered to herself, sipping her tea. But she didn't believe it. Over the next week, the signs got weirder. Branches broken high up on trees, like 12 feet up, snapped clean but not fallen. That wasn't wind. Wind doesn't break branches at 12 feet and leave everything below untouched. Then she found a deer carcass about a quarter mile from her cabin, ribs cracked open, meat gone, but the whole thing arranged, and that's the word that stuck with her. Arranged on a flat rock, like someone had set a table. Bones too clean, too organized. Predators don't do that. Predators eat messy, leave chaos, drag shit everywhere. This was different. And then there was the feeling. You know that vibe when someone's staring but you can't see him? That prickle on the back of your neck? That weight in the air like the space around you just got crowded? Sharon felt that every evening now. She'd be reading by lamplight, and suddenly the silence would get thicker, like something just stepped close to the window but didn't knock. She'd look up, see nothing, go back to her book. But her hands would shake just a little. She wasn't scared. Not yet. Curious, maybe. Unsettled, sure. But Sharon Brewster hadn't survived 66 years by panicking every time something didn't make sense. So she did what she always did, observed, adapted, kept her shotgun by the door just in case, and waited to see what the hell was going on. The first real snowfall came on November 18th. Sharon remembered the date because it was Gerald's birthday, would have been 62 if his heart hadn't given up. She thought about him more than she'd admit, especially on days like this, when the sky turned that flat grey color that meant business. The snow started just after lunch, fat flakes drifting down lazy at first, then picking up speed like someone upstairs had gotten impatient. By 4 p.m., the world was white. By 6, the wind had joined the party, howling through the trees like a drunk ex trying to get your attention. Sharon fed the stove, made a pot of chili that she'd eat for 3 days straight, and settled in with a thriller about a detective in Boston who had bigger problems than mysterious footprints. The cabin creaked and groaned the way old cabins do, but the walls held, the stove pumped heat, and she had enough wood stacked inside to last a week if she needed it. She was on chapter 12. Detective just found the body. Real grim stuff when she heard it. A sound. Not wind, not branches. Something else. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. Spaced out like someone was being polite. Like they were asking instead of demanding. Sharon froze, book still open in her lap. Her brain went through the list. Wind knocking something loose, possible but unlikely. A branch hitting the door, except the door faced away from the wind. An animal. Animals don't knock. A person. No car, no tracks. And who the hell would be out here in this storm? She waited. Counted to 10. Nothing. Then 3 more knocks. Same rhythm. 2 quick. 1 slower. Almost musical. Shit, she whispered. She stood up slow, joints popping, heart doing that thing where it speeds up, but you pretend it's not. The shotgun was right there by the door, loaded, safety on. She picked it up, felt the weight of it, the cold metal against her palm. Then she moved to the window and pulled back the curtain just a crack. At first, she couldn't see anything through the snow and the dark, just white chaos, like static on an old TV. But then, near the bottom step of the porch, something moved. A shape, low to the ground, hunched, dark against the snow. It was shaking not from aggression, from cold. Violent shivering, the kind that hurts your bones. Sharon's breath fogged the glass. She squinted, leaned closer. Two shapes, one bigger, one smaller. Both covered in what looked like fur, soaked through, clumped with ice and snow. The bigger one had an arm, because yes, it was an arm, not a leg wrapped around the smaller one, holding it close, protective. And the smaller one wasn't moving much, just trembling, weak. Sharon's grip on the shotgun loosened. Her mind raced, throwing out options like cards, bear cubs, wrong shape, dogs, way too big, wrong fur, people in costumes, who the fuck would? And then the option she didn't want to think, but couldn't avoid. Oh hell no, no way, not possible, but possible or not, there they were. The bigger one, maybe 4 feet tall, shoulders broad, head too large for its body turned slightly, and for just a second, the porch light caught its face. Not a snout, not a muzzle, a face. Flat, humanoid, eyes wide and dark, and filled with something Sharon recognized immediately because she'd felt it herself 4 years ago when Gerald died. Desperation. The smaller one made a sound, not a cry, not a growl, a whimper, weak, fading. Sharon stood there for 5 full seconds, frozen, every logical part of her brain screaming, close the curtain, lock the door, pretend you didn't see shit. But then the smaller one whimpered again, and something else in her brain, something older, something that didn't give a damn about logic, said, that's a baby, that's somebody's baby, and it's dying. She set the shotgun down, unlatched the door, opened it slow. The wind hit her like a slap, cold and mean, full of snow that stung her face. The two shapes on the porch didn't move. The bigger one looked up at her, eyes locking onto hers, and Sharon saw it clear as day. Fear, not of her, fear for the small one. Jesus Christ, Sharon muttered. She stepped back, holding the door open. Get in here before you both freeze to death. They didn't move at first, just stared at her like they were trying to figure out if this was a trap. Sharon didn't blame them. If she were them, she wouldn't trust a human either. Come on, she said, softer this time. I'm not gonna hurt you. But that little one needs warmth, and they need it now. The bigger one hesitated, then slowly shuffled forward, dragging the smaller one with it. They crossed the threshold, snow and mud trailing behind, and Sharon closed the door fast, shutting out the wind and the storm and the whole damn world. She turned around, and there they were, in her cabin, two beings that shouldn't exist, dripping on her floor, shaking like leaves, staring at her with eyes that were too human to ignore. The smaller one collapsed, just dropped, legs giving out, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The bigger one made a sound high, panicked, desperate, and dropped beside it, hands because, yes, hands cupping the little one's face. Sharon's nurse instincts kicked in before her brain could catch up. She'd worked in a pediatric unit for 15 years before Gerald's insurance business took off, and she quit to raise the kids. She knew shock when she saw it. Hypothermia, possible injury. Okay, she said, voice steady now, moving fast. Okay, we're gonna fix this. She grabbed every blanket she had, quilts, throws, the emergency wool ones from the closet, and piled them on the floor near the stove. Then she cranked the stove open, tossed in 2 more logs, got that fire roaring. The bigger one watched her every move, body tense, ready to bolt or fight, but it didn't stop her. Sharon knelt beside them, hands out, palms up. I need to check the little one. I'm not gonna hurt them. I just need to see if they're injured. Okay. The bigger one didn't respond, didn't move, just stared at her with those impossibly dark eyes. Okay, here we go, Sharon said, and slowly, so slowly, she reached out and touched the smaller one's arm. The fur was coarse, thick, but underneath she could feel the skin, cold as ice, muscle twitching. She checked for obvious injuries, broken bones, bleeding, anything urgent. Nothing visible, just cold. Dangerously cold. Hypothermia, she muttered. All right. We warm them up slow, too fast, and we shock the system. She wrapped the smaller one in 2 blankets, tucked them close to the stove, but not too close, then turned to the bigger one. You too, come on, you're soaked. The bigger one shook its head, actually shook its head. No one pointed at the smaller one. Yeah, I get it, Sharon said. You want them warm first. Fine, but you're next, or you're going to be useless when they wake up. She grabbed her tea kettle, filled it with water, set it on the stove. While it heated, she pulled out a jar of honey, a loaf of bread she'd baked 2 days ago, and some dried venison. Basic, simple, fuel. The kettle whistled. She made weak tea, nothing fancy, just warmth, and poured it into a bowl, tore the bread into chunks, soaked them in the tea and honey until they were soft. Then she brought the bowl over and set it down between them. Eat, she said. Slow, small bites. You need sugar and warmth in your system. The bigger one looked at the bowl, then at Sharon, then at the smaller one. Finally, it reached out, took a piece of bread, and ate. Slow, cautious. But it ate. Sharon sat back on her heels, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was catching up. She looked at them, really looked, and tried to process what the hell was happening. They were real. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever the hell people called them, real. Sitting in her cabin, eating her bread, shivering by her stove. Well, she said to no one in particular, voice barely above a whisper, guess I'm not lonely anymore. And that night changed everything Sharon Brewster ever knew about what was possible in this world. The smaller one, Sharon started thinking of them as little bit, in her head, because she needed to call them something, didn't wake up for 3 hours. 3 hours of Sharon checking their pulse, monitoring their breathing, adjusting blankets, keeping that stove fed like her life depended on it. The bigger one, who Sharon mentally dubbed Mama, even though she had no idea if that was accurate, never left Little Bit's side, just sat there, one massive hand resting on the little one's chest, feeling every breath like it might be the last. Around midnight, Little Bit's eyes finally opened. Slow, confused, they blinked a few times, focused on Mama, then turned their head and saw Sharon sitting in her rocker about 6 feet away, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee she'd forgotten to drink. The two of them stared at each other. Sharon didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. Little Bit made a sound soft, questioning, and Mama responded with something low and rumbling that Sharon felt in her chest more than heard. A reassurance. It's okay. She helped. We're safe. Little Bit's eyes drifted shut again, but this time it was sleep, not unconsciousness. Real sleep. The kind where the body finally decides it's safe enough to let go. Sharon let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Thank Christ, she whispered. Mama turned to her then, and for the first time, something in those dark eyes softened. Not quite trust, but maybe gratitude. Mama brought one hand to her chest, fingers spread wide, then lowered it slowly until it touched the floor. A gesture Sharon didn't understand, but felt anyway. You're welcome, Sharon said quietly. She stood up, knees cracking, and moved to the kitchen. Made another pot of tea. Cut more bread. This time she added butter, more honey, some of the dried venison. Brought it all over on a plate and set it down within Mama's reach. You gotta eat too, Sharon said. Can't take care of anyone if you collapse. Mama hesitated, then reached for the food. Ate slowly at first, then faster, like the hunger finally caught up. Sharon watched, fascinated despite herself. The hands were incredible thick fingers, opposable thumbs, nails that looked more like flattened claws. But the way Mama held the bread, the delicate way she picked up the smaller pieces. It was careful, precise, human. When the plate was empty, Mama looked at Sharon and made a sound. Not words, not language Sharon recognized, but the tone was clear. "Thank you." Sharon nodded. "Yeah, I hear you." She dragged her old quilt off the rocker and laid it over both of them. "Get some sleep. I'll keep the fire going." Mama watched her for a long moment, then slowly laid down beside Little Bit, wrapping that massive body around the smaller one like a living shield. Within minutes, both of them were asleep. Deep, exhausted, bone-tired sleep. Sharon sat back in her rocker and just processed. Her hands were shaking again, not from fear, from the sheer absurdity of what had just happened. She'd let 2 Bigfoot into her cabin, fed them, saved one of them, maybe, and now they were sleeping 6 feet away like this was completely normal. "Gerald," she whispered to the empty air, "if you're watching this shit, you better be laughing your ass off." She didn't sleep that night, just kept the fire going, watched them breathe, and tried to figure out what the hell came next. Morning came slow and grey, the kind of dawn that doesn't really commit to being day. The storm had passed, leaving behind 2 feet of fresh snow that made the world look like someone had hit the reset button. Sharon was on her 4th cup of coffee, standing at the window, when she heard movement behind her. She turned. Mama was sitting up, alert, watching her. Little Bit was still asleep, curled tight under the blankets. "Morning," Sharon said, keeping her voice low. "How's the little one?" Mama looked down at Little Bit, then back at Sharon. Made a sound soft, almost musical, then pointed at the window. Sharon followed the gesture. At first, she didn't see anything. Just snow and trees and that flat morning light. But then she noticed them. Shapes. Standing at the edge of the clearing, just inside the tree line. Tall, still, watching. Her heart kicked up. "Friends of yours?" Mama stood slowly, moving careful not to wake Little Bit. She crossed to the window and looked out, body tense. Then she made another sound, this one, different, lower, longer. And from the trees, one of the shapes moved, just a slight shift. An acknowledgement. "They're worried about you," Sharon said. It wasn't a question. Mama turned to her, and in that moment, Sharon saw it clear. Mama was young, maybe equivalent to a teenager, early 20s. Not the parent, more like an older sibling, someone who'd been trusted with the baby and lost them in the storm. "Oh, honey," Sharon said softly, "you're just a kid yourself, aren't you?" Mama's eyes held hers for a beat, then looked away. Sharon set her coffee down and moved to the door. "I'm gonna go out there. Let them know you're okay. That sound good?" Mama made a noise that Sharon chose to interpret as yes. Sharon pulled on her coat, her boots, her gloves, grabbed a basket, and filled it with bread, some apples, dried meat. Then she opened the door and stepped out into the cold. The snow came up past her ankles, fresh and undisturbed except for the path she was making. She walked slow, steady, basket held out in front of her like an offering. The shapes in the trees didn't move, didn't retreat, just watched. When she was about 20 feet from the tree line, she stopped, set the basket down in the snow. Then she stepped back, hands visible, empty. "Your family's safe?" she called out. "The little ones warming up, the older ones watching over them. They ate, they slept, they're okay." No response, just wind and silence and the weight of being observed. Sharon tried again. "I'm not going to hurt them. They can stay as long as they need to. Storm's over, but it's still cold, and that little one needs rest." One of the shapes moved forward, stepped out from behind a tree. Sharon's breath caught. It was massive. 7 feet easy, maybe more, shoulders broader than any human, arms that hung past its knees, covered in thick dark fur that looked almost black in the morning light. But it was the face that got her flat, humanoid, with a prominent brow and eyes that were sharp, intelligent, aware. The creature stared at her. Sharon stared back. Neither moved. Then the creature did something Sharon didn't expect. It brought one hand to its chest, just like Mama had done, and lowered it to the ground. Slowly, deliberately, Sharon's throat went tight. "Yeah," she said, voice rough. "I understand." The creature held her gaze for another moment, then turned and melted back into the trees. The other shapes followed, disappearing into the forest like they'd never been there at all. Sharon stood there for a while, heart pounding, breath fogging in the cold air. Then she picked up the basket lighter now, some of the food already gone, though she hadn't seen them take it, and walked back to the cabin. Inside, Mama was standing by the door, watching. When Sharon came in, Mama made that low rumbling sound again. "Thank you." "Yeah," Sharon said, shaking the snow off her boots. "We're good. Your people know you're safe." Little Bit stirred then, making a soft sound. Mama was at their side instantly, checking them, making gentle noises. Little Bit's eyes opened, clearer now, more focused. They looked around the cabin, at Mama, then at Sharon. For a second, fear flashed across that little face. But Mama made a reassuring sound, and Little Bit relaxed. Still wary, still uncertain, but not terrified. Progress, Sharon thought. Hit like right now, if you're feeling the suspense. I want to know you're invested. The days that followed developed a strange rhythm. Not routine, nothing about this was routine, but a kind of careful coexistence. Sharon learned quick that Mama and Little Bit weren't just animals acting on instinct. They were people, different people, sure, but people all the same. Little Bit got stronger each day. By the third morning, they were sitting up on their own, eating without help, watching Sharon with curious eyes that tracked her every movement. Mama stayed protective, but started to relax a little, stopped hovering quite so close. Both of them were fascinated by the simplest things, the way the coffee percolator bubbled on the stove, the sound of Sharon turning pages in her book, the dancing shadows the lamp threw on the walls at night. Sharon established some ground rules, mostly through gestures and tone, since actual conversation was off the table. The food shelf was fair game. She kept it stocked with bread, dried fruit, nuts, anything that didn't need cooking. The stove was hers to manage, because she didn't trust anyone else not to burn the place down. The bedroom was her space. Everything else they could share. They learned fast. Mama figured out pretty quick that the kettle whistling meant tea was ready. Little Bit discovered that the rocker made a creaking sound and would push it gently with one hand just to hear it. They were quiet, unnaturally quiet, really. No stomping, no crashing around. They moved through the cabin like water, careful and deliberate. On the fourth day, Sharon woke up to find a gift on her porch. She'd left the door unlocked. Stupid, maybe, but she figured if they wanted to leave, she wasn't going to stop them, and when she got up at dawn, there it was. A bundle of pine boughs tied together with some kind of grass or vine, arranged in a neat circle, a wreath, crude but intentional. She brought it inside, set it on the table. "One of you make this." Mama looked at it, then at Sharon, and nodded, actually nodded. "It's beautiful," Sharon said. "Thank you." Something shifted in the air after that, a lowering of defenses. That night, when Sharon made stew, she made enough for 3, set out 3 bowls. They ate together at the table, or what passed for together, since Mama and Little Bit sat on the floor because the chairs weren't going to hold them, and it felt less like babysitting refugees and more like family dinner. Sharon found herself talking to them. Didn't matter that they couldn't answer. She talked anyway. Told them about Gerald, about the kids who never called, about why she came out here in the first place. Mama listened with an intensity that was almost uncomfortable, like she was trying to understand not just the words, but the weight behind them. "People think being alone is sad," Sharon said one night, stirring her tea. "But sometimes it's the only way you can hear yourself think. The world's so damn loud all the time. Out here, it's quiet. I can just be." Mama made a sound, low, thoughtful, and Sharon could have sworn there was understanding in it. Little Bit was healing fast, faster than Sharon expected. By day 6, they were walking around the cabin without help, exploring corners, touching things with careful fingers. They found Sharon's stack of books and spent an hour just looking at the covers, tracing the letters with one claw tip like they were trying to decode something magical. "You like books?" Sharon asked. Little Bit looked up at her and made a sound. High, almost bird-like. Then they opened one of the books, a western with a cowboy on the cover, and held it up to Sharon. "You want me to read to you?" Little Bit's eyes went wide, hopeful. "All right then." Sharon sat down in her rocker, and Little Bit immediately plopped down on the floor in front of her. Mama settled nearby, watching. Sharon opened the book and started reading. She made it through 3 chapters before her voice gave out, and by then Little Bit was leaning against Mama's leg, eyes half closed, completely content. "Good book?" Sharon asked. Little Bit made a happy sound. "Yeah," Sharon said. "I thought so too." That night, Sharon lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft breathing from the main room. She thought about her kids, wondered if they'd believe any of this. Probably not. Hell, she barely believed it, and she was living it. But here's the thing: for the first time in 4 years, the cabin didn't feel empty. For the first time since Gerald died, Sharon didn't feel like she was just waiting out the clock. She felt needed, useful, like she mattered to someone again. "Don't get used to this," she whispered to herself. "They're gonna leave soon, back to their people. This is temporary." But even as she said it, part of her hoped she was wrong. On the 7th morning, Sharon woke to silence. Not the usual quiet, but present kind, total silence. She sat up fast, heart hammering, and threw on her robe. The main room was empty. The blankets were folded neatly by the stove. The dishes from last night were stacked by the sink. But Mama and Little Bit were gone. "No," Sharon whispered. "No, no, no, not like this." She rushed to the door, threw it open. The sun was just coming up, painting the snow gold and pink. And there, at the edge of the clearing, she saw them. Mama and Little Bit, standing at the tree line. They weren't alone. There were others, 6 or 7 of them, ranging from massive adults to smaller juveniles. They stood in a loose group, waiting. And at the center was the big one from before, the one who'd stepped forward that first morning. Sharon's throat went tight. "Oh." Mama turned and looked back at her. Their eyes met across the distance, and then Mama did something that made Sharon's eyes sting. She brought her hand to her chest, held it there for a moment, then extended it towards Sharon. "Palm out, open, thank you, for everything." Sharon lifted her hand in return, couldn't speak, didn't trust her voice. Little Bit was bouncing on their feet, excited, tugging at Mama's arm. Ready to go home, ready to be with their family again. Mama hesitated, then turned and led Little Bit toward the group. The big one watched Sharon for a long moment. Then it lowered its head, just slightly, a nod of respect, and turned. The entire group melted into the trees, silent as shadows, and just like that, they were gone. Sharon stood on the porch in her robe and slippers, snow cold under her feet, staring at the empty tree line. Her chest ached. Not grief, exactly. Something else. Something that felt like loss and gratitude mixed together in a way that hurt but didn't break. She went back inside. The cabin was too quiet now, too empty. She made coffee on autopilot, sat at the table, and noticed something she'd missed before. Another wreath, smaller than the first one, made of cedar and pine, woven with dried grass, and something that looked like fur, soft, dark, carefully braided into the design. It sat on the table where her book had been, and tucked into the center was a single carved figure. Sharon picked it up. It was a bird, rough but recognizable, wings spread like it was about to take flight. She held it in her palm and let herself cry. Just for a minute. Just enough. "Go on," she whispered. "Go home. Be safe." Outside, the sun climbed higher. The snow began to melt at the edges. And somewhere deep in the forest, a family was whole again. But Sharon's story wasn't over yet. But what Sharon didn't know was, they weren't alone anymore, and neither was she. The first week after Mama and Little Bit left, Sharon tried to go back to normal. Normal chores, normal routine, normal silence. But the cabin felt wrong now, like a shirt that used to fit but didn't anymore. She'd catch herself setting out 3 bowls at dinner before remembering. She'd hear a creak and turn around expecting to see Little Bit pushing the rocker. She kept the wreaths on the table, the carved bird on the windowsill, where the morning light hit it just right. The forest felt different too, not threatening, just watchful, like something out there was paying attention. She started leaving food on the porch again. Not a lot, just extra bread, some dried apples, nuts. Every morning she'd set out a small plate near the steps, and every morning it would be gone by dawn. No footprints, no signs, just gone. And then the gifts started appearing. First, it was more pine wreaths, hung from branches near the cabin where she'd find them on her walks. Then small carved figures, a deer, a bear, a fish, rough but getting more refined, like whoever was making them was practicing. Then bundles of herbs she didn't recognize at first, but eventually figured out. Wild ginger root, good for tea and settling stomachs. Bark from willows, the kind that helped with pain. Someone was leaving her medicine. "Y'all don't have to do this," Sharon said one morning, talking to the empty trees, while she gathered the latest bundle. "We're square. You don't owe me anything." But the gifts kept coming. 3 weeks after Mama and Little Bit left, Sharon was out checking her trapline. She didn't trap animals, just used it as an excuse to walk a circuit through her property when she found something that made her stop cold. A warning: 3 large stones, each the size of a bowling ball, stacked in a cairn right in the middle of the trail. That wasn't natural. Stones don't stack themselves. And these weren't just balanced, they were placed. Intentional. The kind of thing that made the hair on her neck stand up. She looked around slowly, scanning the trees. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. "What are you trying to tell me?" she asked the forest. The forest didn't answer. But when she got back to the cabin, she noticed something else. Fresh tracks, not Bigfoot tracks, boot prints, human, multiple people, leading from the old logging road up toward the ridge that bordered her property. Sharon stood on her porch, hands on her hips, and swore under her breath. Hunters. It was December now, which meant elk season. Every year, hunters from Seattle or Spokane would rent cabins in Packwood and head up into the mountains with their rifles and their beer and their overconfidence. Most of them were fine, respectful, followed the rules, left the land how they found it. But some of them were assholes who treated the wilderness like their personal playground and didn't give a damn what they destroyed. And if they saw something weird, something they couldn't explain, Sharon had read enough stories to know how that ended. With bullets first, questions never. She went inside and dug out the satellite phone. Took her 3 tries to get a signal, and when she finally did, she called her son Michael. "Mom?" He sounded surprised. "Worried? Everything okay?" "I'm fine," she said. "Just wanted to give you a heads up. Got hunters moving through the area. I'm keeping my eyes open, but if you don't hear from me in a week, you know where I am." "Jesus, Mom, do you want me to come up?" "No, I'm fine, just checking in." "You sure?" "Because." "Michael, I said I'm fine. Talk to you next week." She hung up before he could argue. Hated lying to him, but what was she supposed to say? "Hey honey, there's a family of Bigfoot living in the woods behind my cabin, and I'm worried some drunk dickhead is gonna shoot one." "Yeah, that'd go over great." That night, Sharon sat on her porch with a thermos of whiskey-spiked tea and the shotgun across her lap. Not to shoot anyone, just to make a point if needed. The moon was almost full, bright enough to cast shadows, turning the snow into something that glowed. Around midnight, she heard it. Voices, male, loud, coming from the direction of the ridge, telling you, "Man, I saw something up here last year. Big, walked on 2 legs. You were drunk off your ass last year. I'm serious. It was huge, and there were tracks. Tracks don't mean shit. Could have been a bear." Bears don't walk upright for 100 yards, Todd. Sharon's jaw tightened. She stood up, shotgun in hand, and stepped off the porch. The voices were getting closer. She moved toward them, slow and deliberate, boots crunching in the snow. She found them about 50 yards into the trees. 3 men, mid-30s, dressed in camo, headlamps cutting through the dark. 2 of them had rifles slung over their shoulders. The third was carrying something that looked like a camera with a telephoto lens that probably cost more than Sharon's truck. "Evening," Sharon called out. All 3 men jumped, spun around, headlamps blinding her. "Jesus Christ," one of them yelped. "Lower the damn lights," Sharon said, voice hard. They did, slowly. The one with the camera, Todd, apparently squinted at her. "Ma'am, you lost?" "This is my property," Sharon said, "which means you're lost. We're just hiking, at midnight, with rifles, on private land." Sharon shifted her stance, shotgun still pointed down but very visible. "Try again." The second guy, taller, beard covered in frost, held up his hands. "Look, we're not trying to cause trouble. We heard there might be some unusual wildlife in the area. We're just documenting." "Documenting," Sharon repeated, voice flat. "Yeah, for research. We're not gonna hurt anything, just trying to get footage." "No, ma'am." I said no. "You're gonna turn around, walk back to wherever you parked, and leave. Now." Todd stepped forward, camera still in hand. "We have every right to be in these woods. It's national forest. This section isn't. This is private. My private, and you're trespassing." Sharon raised the shotgun just slightly, not aiming, just making a point. "I'm asking nice. Once. Leave." The 3 men looked at each other. The tall one muttered something under his breath, but they started backing away. Todd lingered, still holding that damn camera like he was hoping for one last shot. "There's nothing out here worth finding," Sharon said, locking eyes with him. "And if there was, it deserves to be left alone. You understand me?" Todd stared at her for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Yeah, sure, whatever." They left. Sharon stood there until their voices faded completely, until she couldn't see their headlamps anymore. Then she turned and walked back to the cabin, heart pounding, hands shaking. Inside, she poured another cup of spiked tea and sat by the stove. "You're welcome," she said to the empty room, to the forest beyond the walls, to whoever might be listening. From somewhere far off, deep in the trees, came a sound. Low, rumbling, not quite a growl, not quite a call, just acknowledgement. Sharon smiled despite herself. "Yeah, I know. The hunters left, but the problem didn't." Over the next week, Sharon found more boot prints, more signs of people moving through the area. Different groups, some hikers, some hunters, all of them pushing deeper into the backcountry, getting closer to wherever Mama and Little Bit's tribe was hiding. And the gifts from the forest stopped. No more carvings, no more herbs. The food she left on the porch stayed untouched. The forest went quiet in a way that felt wrong, not peaceful, but tense, waiting. Sharon tried not to panic. Tried to tell herself they were fine. They'd moved deeper into the mountains. They were safe. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. On the 8th day, she found blood. Not a lot. Just drops, dark against the snow, leading from the ridge down toward the creek. She followed the trail, shotgun in hand, pulse hammering in her ears. The blood led to a dense thicket of brambles and deadfall. Sharon pushed through, thorns catching her jacket, branches scraping her face. And there, huddled in a hollow beneath a fallen cedar, was Mama. "Oh, Jesus," Sharon breathed. Mama looked up at her, eyes wide and wild with pain. Her left arm was wrapped against her chest, and even from 6 feet away, Sharon could see the injury, a deep gash across her forearm, still bleeding, the fur around it matted and dark. "What happened?" Sharon dropped to her knees, setting the shotgun aside. "Let me see." Mama made a sound low, pained but didn't pull away. when Sharon reached for her arm. The wound was bad. Deep, clean edges. Not a claw. Not a bite. A knife. Someone cut you, Sharon said, rage building in her chest. One of those bastards cut you. Mama's breathing was shallow, rapid, shock setting in. Sharon had seen enough injuries in her nursing days to know this needed stitches, antibiotics, and fast. Okay, Sharon said, voice steady even though her hands wanted to shake. Okay, we're gonna fix this, but I need to get you back to the cabin. Can you walk? Mama nodded weakly. All right, come on, lean on me. It took 20 minutes to get back to the cabin. Mama was heavy, way heavier than Sharon expected, and every few steps she'd stumble, nearly taking them both down. But they made it. Got inside. Got the door closed. Sharon sat Mama down by the stove and went straight for her medical kit. She kept it stocked for emergencies, bandages, antiseptic, needle and thread, painkillers. She dumped it all on the table and got to work. This is gonna hurt, she warned. But I gotta clean it first. She poured antiseptic over the wound. Mama hissed, fingers digging into the floorboards, but she didn't pull away. Sharon worked fast, cleaned it, packed it with gauze, then threaded the needle. You ready? Mama looked at her with those dark, impossibly human eyes, and nodded. Sharon stitched her up. 12 stitches, neat and tight, the way she'd been taught 3 decades ago. Mama didn't make a sound, just gripped the floor and breathed through it. When it was done, Sharon wrapped the arm in clean bandages and sat back on her heels, exhausted. There, that should hold. But you need rest, and you need to keep it clean. Mama lifted her good hand and placed it on Sharon's arm. Gentle, deliberate. Thank you. Yeah, Sharon said roughly. Don't mention it. She made tea, made soup, made Mama eat, even though she clearly didn't want to. Then she grabbed her shotgun and sat in the rocker, facing the door. Whoever did this, Sharon said quietly, they come back, they're gonna have a problem. You hear me? Mama made a sound, soft, almost like a laugh. Yeah, Sharon said. I thought so too. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. It's gonna be even crazier. That night, Sharon didn't sleep, just sat in the rocker, shotgun across her lap, listening. Around 3 a.m., she heard it. Footsteps, crunching through the snow. Multiple people. She stood up slow, checked the shotgun, and moved to the window. There were 4 of them this time, different from before. These guys looked serious, expensive gear. Rifles with scopes, moving information like they had training. Mercenaries, maybe, or private security. Definitely not weekend warriors from Seattle. They were searching the area, sweeping with flashlights, checking tracks. One of them bent down near the bloodstain Sharon had found earlier, said something into a radio. Sharon's blood went cold. They were hunting, actually hunting. For Mama's tribe. She looked back at Mama, who was standing now despite the injury, body tense, ready to run or fight. No, Sharon said. You stay put. I'll handle this. Mama shook her head. I said stay. Sharon grabbed a jacket, pulled it on. You go out there injured, you're dead. Trust me on this. She didn't wait for a response. Just stepped outside, shotgun visible, door slamming shut behind her. The 4 men turned toward the sound, flashlights swinging to pin her. Help you gentlemen with something, Sharon called out, voice carrying across the snow. The lead guy, tall, buzz-cut, expensive jacket, stepped forward. Ma'am, we're conducting a wildlife survey. We'll be out of your way shortly. Wildlife survey, Sharon repeated. At 3 in the morning, with military-grade rifles. That's a new one. We have permits. I don't give a shit about your permits. You're on my land. Leave. Buzzcut's expression hardened. Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to go back inside and let us do our job. Or what? Or we'll have to ask you to cooperate for your own safety. Sharon chambered around. The sound echoed across the clearing, sharp and final. That a threat? The 4 men tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Easy. Buzzcut said. Hands up. Nobody wants trouble. Then leave. We're tracking something dangerous, something that attacked one of our team. We have reason to believe it's in this area. Bullshit. Sharon's voice went hard as iron. Your guy attacked something first, cut it with a knife, and now you're hunting it. That about right. Buzzcut's eyes narrowed. What do you know about that? Enough to know you're full of shit, and enough to know you need to leave before this gets ugly. One of the other guys, younger, twitchy, spoke up. She's protecting it. She knows where it is. Shut up, Davis, Buzzcut snapped. But the damage was done. They knew she knew. And Sharon knew they weren't going to just walk away. Time slowed down. She could see them making the calculation. 4 armed men versus 1 old woman. Easy math. Except Sharon had been a nurse in downtown Tacoma for 15 years. She dealt with gang members, drunk drivers, and meth heads with knives. She wasn't scared of 4 assholes with guns and god complexes. Last chance, she said quietly. Walk away. Buzzcut's hand moved toward his rifle, and that's when they came. Little did Sharon know, the real challenge was still ahead, and it was coming from every direction at once. From the tree line, they emerged, silent as death, massive, terrifying, beautiful, at least a dozen of them, moving in perfect coordination, forming a wall between Sharon's cabin and the 4 men. The biggest one, the elder Sharon had seen that first morning, stepped forward. And even in the dark, even with just moonlight and flashlights cutting through the snow, the message was crystal clear. Back the fuck off. The 4 men froze. Every single one of them went statue. Still, hands hovering near weapons they suddenly weren't sure they wanted to draw. Holy shit, Davis whispered. Holy shit. Don't move, Buzzcut hissed. But Sharon could hear it in his voice, the fear, the shock, the realization that all their training and all their guns didn't mean a damn thing when you were facing something that shouldn't exist. The elder made a sound. Deep, resonant. It rolled across the clearing like thunder, and Sharon felt it in her bones, in her teeth, in the center of her chest. Not a threat, a statement. This is our land. She is under our protection. Leave or face consequences. One of the other men, older, gray-beard, looked like he'd seen combat, slowly lowered his rifle. We should go. We're not leaving without. Now, Greybeard said, voice shaking. We go now. Buzzcut looked at Sharon, then at the wall of Bigfoot, then back at Sharon. Whatever he saw in her face made him realize he'd lost. This isn't over. Yeah, it is, Sharon said flatly. You come back here. You won't just be dealing with them. You'll be dealing with the county sheriff, the Forest Service, and every news outlet I can call. I'll tell them you trespassed on private property, threatened a resident, and were hunting protected wildlife. See how that works out for your survey. Buzzcut's jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Move out. The 4 men backed away slowly, weapons still in hand, but pointed down, eyes never leaving the tribe. When they hit the tree line, they turned and ran. Full-on ran. Sharon heard them crashing through the brush, heard the panic in their voices, and smiled, despite the adrenaline still flooding her system. The elder turned to her, made that gesture again, hand to chest, lowered to the ground. Thank you. You stood with us. Sharon nodded. Yeah, well, nobody messes with my neighbors. The elder tilted his head, something that might have been amusement in those dark eyes. Then he looked past Sharon toward the cabin, and his expression changed, softened, concerned. Sharon turned. Mama was in the doorway, leaning against the frame, good arm pressed against her injured one, but standing, defiant. The elder made a sound low, questioning. Mama responded with a series of clicks and rumbles that Sharon couldn't begin to interpret, but understood anyway. I'm okay. She helped. I'm safe. The elder approached the cabin slowly. Sharon stepped aside, giving him space. He climbed the porch steps. They creaked under his weight, but held and stopped in front of Mama. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then the elder reached out and gently touched Mama's bandaged arm. Mama flinched, but didn't pull away. The elder turned to Sharon, made a sound, Different this time. Not gratitude. Something deeper. Recognition. You are one of us now. I don't know what that means, Sharon said honestly. But the elder seemed to understand anyway. He reached into something Sharon hadn't noticed before a leather pouch hanging from his shoulder, old and worn, and pulled out something small. He held it out to her. Sharon stepped closer, held out her hand. The elder dropped the object into her palm. It was a stone, smooth, river-worn, but carved with symbols. Sharon didn't recognize circles and lines and patterns that looked almost like writing. It was warm, despite the cold, like it had been held close to someone's body for a long time. "What is this?" Sharon asked. The elder brought his hand to his chest, then extended it toward her, palm out, a gesture she'd seen before. Then he pointed to the stone, then to the forest, then back to her. "You are protected. The land knows you. We know you." Sharon's throat went tight. She closed her fingers around the stone. "Thank you." The elder nodded once, then turned back to Mama. Made a gentle sound. Mama looked at Sharon, then at the elder, then back at Sharon. The conflict was clear on her face. Stay where it's safe, or go home with her people. "Go on," Sharon said quietly. "Your family needs you. I'm okay." Mama hesitated. Then she crossed to Sharon and did something unexpected. Wrapped her good arm around Sharon's shoulders in what could only be called a hug. It was awkward, careful, but genuine. Sharon hugged her back, throat burning. "You take care of that arm," Sharon whispered. "Keep it clean. Come back if it gets infected." Mama made a sound against her shoulder. Soft, sad. Then she pulled back and followed the elder off the porch. The tribe gathered around them, checking Mama's injury, making concerned sounds. Then, as one unit, they turned and moved into the forest. Within seconds, they were gone, like they'd never been there. Sharon stood on her porch, stone clutched in her hand, and watched the empty trees. The sky was starting to lighten in the east. Dawn coming. Another day. She looked down at the stone, turned it over in her palm. The symbols caught the early light, seemed to shimmer slightly. She didn't know what they meant. Didn't know if she'd ever see Mama or Little Bit again. Didn't know if those men would come back with more people, bigger guns, worse intentions. But she knew this. She wasn't alone. The forest had her back. And when you've got the forest and everyone in it on your side, that's worth more than any weapon, any lock, any wall you could build. "Gerald," she said to the morning air, "you would have loved this shit." She went inside, locked the door, and finally let herself sleep. The weeks after that night passed differently. Quieter on the surface, but charged underneath. Sharon went back to her routines, chopping wood, hauling water, reading by lamplight, but everything felt changed, permanent changed. The kind of change that gets into your bones and rewires how you see the world. She kept the stone with her always, in her pocket during the day, under her pillow at night. It was a totem, a promise, a reminder that sometimes the impossible isn't impossible at all. It's just waiting for someone brave enough or stupid enough to open the door. The gifts started again. Small things. A bundle of cedar, carved animals, fresh herbs she didn't ask for but needed. And once, a week after the confrontation, she found something that made her laugh out loud. 3 fish, cleaned and gutted, arranged neatly on a flat rock near her door. Payment, maybe, or thanks, or just because that's what family does, takes care of each other. She started leaving notes. Stupid, probably. They couldn't read English. But she left them anyway, tucked into the wreaths or under the food plates. "Thank you. Stay safe. The world's not ready for you, but I am." One morning in late January, Sharon was splitting wood when she heard it. 3 knocks, not on the door, on a tree, the big cedar near the trail. She set down the axe and walked over. Mama was standing there, arms still bandaged but healing, holding something in her good hand. "Well, hey there," Sharon said, smiling wide. "Look at you, walking around like you own the place." Mama made a happy sound and held out what she'd been carrying. It was another carving, more detailed than the others. A woman, standing on a porch, arms crossed, shotgun leaning against the wall beside her. Sharon took it carefully. "Is this me?" Mama nodded, made a sound, gestured to the forest, then to Sharon, then pressed both hands to her chest. "You saved us. We won't forget." "Damn right you won't," Sharon said, voice rough. She looked at the carving, at the details someone had put into it, the coat, the boots, even the rocker visible through the cabin window behind the figure. "This is beautiful. Thank you." Mama stepped closer, touched Sharon's shoulder with one careful finger. Then she turned and melted back into the trees. Sharon stood there for a long time, holding the carving, feeling the weight of it, the weight of being seen, being known, being remembered. That night, she placed the carving on the mantel next to Gerald's photo. The two of them, her past and her present, watching over the cabin together. February came cold and sharp. The snow returned with a vengeance, burying the world in white silence. Sharon's kids called Michael worried, her daughter Jennifer practical, asking if she needed anything. She told them she was fine. Told them the cabin was warm, the pantry was stocked, the neighbors were looking out for her. They didn't ask what neighbors. She didn't explain. One evening, Sharon sat on her porch, wrapped in every blanket she owned, thermos of spiked tea in hand, watching the stars come out. The forest was quiet, but it was the good kind of quiet, the kind that felt like companionship rather than loneliness. She heard footsteps, soft, careful. She turned her head. Little Bit was standing at the edge of the clearing, taller now, healthier. They weren't shaking or scared. They were just there, visiting. "Well, look who it is," Sharon said warmly. "Come here, sugar. Let me see you." Little Bit approached slowly, stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. They looked up at Sharon with those impossibly expressive eyes, and Sharon saw it clear as day recognition, memory, affection. "You grew," Sharon said. "Look at you, all strong and healthy." Little Bit made a chirping sound, happy. Then they held something out. Sharon leaned forward. It was a flower, or what passed for a flower in the dead of winter, a sprig of evergreen with berries, carefully arranged, tied with grass. "For me?" Little Bit nodded enthusiastically. Sharon took it gently. "It's perfect. Thank you." Little Bit made another sound, then turned and bounded back toward the trees. At the edge, they stopped and looked back once, waved, actual wave. Hand in the air, back and forth. Sharon waved back, laughing through the tears that suddenly showed up uninvited. "Go on, get home before you freeze." Little Bit disappeared. And Sharon sat there on her porch, holding a flower made of evergreen and berry, and thought about all the ways we save each other. Sometimes it's dramatic stitches and storms, and standing down armed men. Sometimes it's simple bread and honey, and a warm place to sleep. But it's always worth it. Always. Like if you think this is the best story yet. Spring came slow but inevitable. The snow melted. The creek woke up, roaring with runoff. Birds returned. The forest went from silent to cacophonous, filled with the sound of things waking up, starting over, being born. Sharon planted a garden that year, first one since she'd moved up here. Tomatoes, carrots, herbs, some flowers just because they were pretty. She worked the soil with her hands, felt the earth between her fingers, and thought about roots, about growing things, about how sometimes you plant something and have no idea what it'll become. You just trust the process. Her kids visited in June. Michael brought his family, his wife Sarah, and the grandkids Sharon barely knew. Jennifer came alone, fresh off a divorce, looking tired but determined. They stayed 3 days, hiked, ate Sharon's cooking, played cards, asked the usual questions about whether she was lonely, whether she thought about moving back to town, whether she was really okay up here by herself. She told them the truth. She'd never been better. They didn't understand. That was okay. Some things you can't explain. You just live them, On the last night before they left, Sharon stood on the porch with Michael while Sarah got the kids ready for bed inside. The sun was setting, painting the mountains purple and gold. Perfect evening. "Mom," Michael said carefully, "you seem different." "Happy." "It's good, but it's different." "I am happy," Sharon said. "What changed?" Sharon thought about it, about Mama and Little Bit, about the tribe watching from the trees, about standing down armed men at 3 a.m, about carved birds and river stones and the sound of 3 knocks in the dark. "I remembered something," she said finally. "Something I forgot when your dad died. That the world's bigger than we think, and scarier, but also more beautiful. And if you're brave enough to let it surprise you, it'll show you things you never imagined." Michael looked at her like he was trying to figure out if she'd lost her mind. "Don't worry," Sharon said, patting his arm. "I'm not going mystical on you. I'm just saying, life's short, and spending it afraid is a waste. You're not afraid up here." "Alone?" Sharon smiled. "I'm not alone." She didn't elaborate. Michael didn't push. He hugged her tight before they left the next morning, made her promise to call more, drove away with his family packed into the SUV, looking back at her through the windows. Sharon waved until they disappeared down the mountain. Then she went inside, made tea, and sat in her rocker with a book. An hour later, there was a knock. 3 beats. Familiar. She opened the door. The elder stood there, with Mama beside him, and behind them, Little Bit, but not so little anymore, nearly as tall as Mama now, growing up fast. "Well," Sharon said, grinning. "This, a social call, or you here for dinner?" The elder made a sound, deep, warm, something that might have been laughter. Sharon stepped aside. "Come on in then. I got stew on the stove." They came in, carefully, respectfully, filled her cabin with presents and warmth and the smell of forest and earth. Sharon served dinner 4 bowls this time, because why the hell not? And they ate together. No words needed, just companionship, just family. After dinner, Little Bit showed Sharon something they'd been practicing, stacking stones. They took 3 river rocks from their pocket and balanced them perfectly, one on top of the other, concentration fierce on their face. "That's real good," Sharon said. "You been practicing?" Little Bit nodded proudly. "Keep it up. Maybe someday you'll build something big, something important." Little Bit made a determined sound. "I will." When they left, as the sun finished setting and the stars came out, the elder paused at the door. He reached out and placed one massive hand on Sharon's shoulder. Gentle, careful. And in that touch, Sharon felt everything: gratitude, respect, kinship, promise. "You are ours. We are yours. This is not ending. This is beginning." Sharon nodded, throat too tight to speak. They disappeared into the night, into the forest, into the impossible place where legends live and breathe, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, knock on your door. Sharon stood on her porch long after they were gone, looking up at the stars, thinking about Gerald, thinking about her old life in Tacoma, thinking about all the versions of herself she'd been before this one. "We did good, Gerald," she whispered to the night. "Didn't we? We did real good," the forest whispered back. Wind through trees, creek running over stones. The distant call of something that might have been an owl or might have been something else entirely. And Sharon Brewster, 66 years old, living way the hell out in the Cascade Mountains, where nobody should live alone, smiled. Because she wasn't alone. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, surrounded by family she never expected but couldn't imagine living without. The world was bigger than people thought, more mysterious, more dangerous, more beautiful. And sometimes, if you were brave enough to open the door when something impossible came knocking, you found out that the best parts of life were the ones you never saw coming. Sometimes the quietest stories are the ones that echo the loudest in our hearts, not the ones about heroes and villains, but the ones about ordinary people who choose compassion over fear, connection over isolation, courage over comfort. Sharon Brewster didn't set out to change the world. She just wanted peace. a quiet place to live out her years. But the universe had different plans, and when it came knocking literally, she made a choice that changed everything. This story is fiction, 100% made up, but the truth inside it, that's real as it gets. The truth that says we're not as different as we think. That kindness speaks every language. That sometimes what we save in a moment of courage is exactly what saves us right back. That family isn't always blood. That home isn't always where you start. Sometimes it's where you end up when you finally stop running. Sharon found her tribe in the last place anyone would look. In the impossible, in the unbelievable, in the space between what we know and what we're afraid to admit might be real. And in finding them, she found herself again. Found purpose, found belonging, found proof that the world's still got magic in it if you're willing to look. So here's the question. What are you running from? What door are you afraid to open? What impossible thing might be waiting just on the other side of your fear, ready to show you that life's bigger, stranger, and more beautiful than you ever imagined? Sometimes all it takes is 3 knocks and the courage to answer. Thank you for walking with us through Sharon's story. If something in it moved you, made you think, or reminded you why connection matters, drop a comment below. Tell us what stayed with you most. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you catch the next story. Because trust us, there's always another door waiting to be opened. There's always another knock in the dark. And we'll be here to tell you what happens when someone's brave enough to answer. The woods are full of stories, and we're just getting started.